Hello, this is Todd Zarwell, and I wanted to introduce you to a new version of my contact lens calculator for EyeDock. The original EyeDock calculator is one of the first things I programmed, and it's almost been about 15 years since I made that, so it stood the test of time well, but I thought it was time for an upgrade. So this is the new version, and in some ways it's very similar. It has a place to refraction, a place to put your keratometry, and a place to choose what type of lens you want. What's different is all the numbers show up on an optical cross, which will help you just kind of visualize the powers. And I'm going to do 43, 46 axis or meridian 90. It also does some error checking too. So in this case, I'm getting an error message that tells me that the axis of my corneal cylinder is different from my refractive cylinder. And there's some extra information here on the bottom that shows us that I typed in a against the rule refraction and a with the rule keratometry. So the axes are off by 90 degrees, which is probably a transcription error on my part. So this gives me a chance to correct a mistake like that. So it should have been 180 in this case. And as soon as you type in your numbers, the calculator calculates each type of contact lens and looks at how much residual correction would be left over, how much uncorrected correction. And because of that, I can give you a estimated assessment of what the potential vision could be. So a spherical lens wouldn't work well, worse than 20/40. Toric lens, in theory, would be a good choice, and it kind of goes through all the GP options too. And then you can just go ahead and click one of these options, or you can click the arrow here to kind of scroll through the options. Now, if you're doing a soft lens search, I like my calculator. I think it's turned out well, but I still think that the easier way to do a soft lens search is actually just to do a regular EyeDock search by refraction. So if we go just to the EyeDock page and we type in our RX here, search by refraction, find soft contacts, not only will this do a similar calculation, but it will find lenses that are appropriate and tell you exactly what power is available in that lens and what sort of vision you could expect. You can even filter it if you want to. So if you just want monthly lenses, you can do that and just find the monthly lenses and really accomplish what you're looking for. So for soft lenses, again, you can use that calculator, but sometimes it's easiest just to type it in this box at the top of the site. So going back to our calculator though, so that's the soft lenses. For the rigid lenses, it gives you an answer just like the old calculator did. In this case though, it tells you a whole bunch of information, so I'm hoping this will be good for education. And again, I just kind of want this to be really transparent so people know exactly how the calculations are being done. So it tells you, it does the calculation, shows you exactly what the tear lens power is. If you add that to the contact lens power, it tells you the total corrected power, and it subtracts that from your vertex refraction and tells you exactly how much residual power will be left over. And from there, it kind of gives you a potential vision assessment and gives you a sense of what the vision could be. I also didn't want to just dictate the base curve, so it does a calculation, and in this case, it went a little steeper than the flat K. But if you have a philosophy where you like to do it differently, you can adjust the base curve. So if I go to this is on K now, it just on the fly changes everything. So it changed our tear lens power and reassess what the lens power should be. Just made all the adjustments that would be necessary just to change that base curve. There is a bitoric calculator. This is done with Mandel-Moore, and it works pretty similarly. You can also adjust the base curve if you choose to. There is a SPE CPE calculator. Again, works very similar to the bitoric. There is a Backtrack Calculator, which does all these calculations. There's even a extra calculation to tell you what induced cylinder would be, because that's a big deal with the Backtoric lenses. You can even modify that by choosing a different material, and it uses the index of refraction to tell you what that induced cylinder would be. There's a front Toric calculator also, which I kept more simple. I don't have a lot of extra calculations in there, but there's a lot of discussion about why that may or may not be a good option. If this is overwhelming, sometimes people get a little intimidated by how much information there is here. You can keep the calculator simple, which will make it much more like the old one, just by hitting this simple button, and it takes away all the optical crosses, all the extra cruft, and kind of just gives you an answer to what would be the best lens. One more thing I wanted to show you is if we go back to the spherical GP lens, let's make this verbose again. So in this case, it gives you an answer. And one thing, when I do these calculations, sometimes I want to know how the lens compares to something the patient has worn in the past. So if I get these numbers, 950, 4350 base curve, sometimes I want to know, this patient used to wear, let's say let's use millimeters to even be more difficult to compare the two. So let's say this patient had a 7.9 base curve lens in the past, and it was a -10. So I want to know, how does that compare to what I just calculated? So if I type those two numbers in and hit go, it will give me a direct comparison. So it tells you that the calculated lens 1, is steeper. And if you take into account the tear lens power, lens 1 is correcting diopter and a quarter less minus. So sometimes I calculate these numbers and I think, well, how is this different from what they used to wear? Am I describing more minus, less minus? And it's not a tough calculation, but it's a little bit cumbersome. So there's a quick, easy way to compare rigid lenses here. So that's it in a nutshell. A lot of stuff here, and you may use some of it, you may use all of it, you may use very little of it, but I'm hoping that this will be really helpful for people at all levels of contact lens fitting. Hoping it's really educational for students, and bottom line is I hope you get a lot of use out of it and that it helps you in your practice. So if you have any questions, please shoot me an email, and thanks so much for watching this.